What's up everyone, Ibra here with Hardware Canucks, and virtual 7.1 gaming headsets are an interesting topic to discuss, particularly because some gaming brands do them right, whereas others just add that as a marketing label to their flagship gaming headsets, yet they still don't offer a surround and immersive gaming experience. I say this because I have received a pair in the office, and it's this guy right over here, the Strix ROG Fusion 500. It's the new kid on the block from ASUS, and they've added features like a virtual 7.1 surround feature, RGB lighting, that's still a thing here, and it also comes in this interesting design, and it costs $180. So I actually decided to compare this pair to another pair that I had here in the studio that cost $150, so $30 cheaper than the Fusion 500, and it's this guy right over here, the HyperX Revolver S gaming headset, and I've done a full review on the channel, so if you're interested, you can check it out right over here. It's actually one of my favorite pairs here in the office, and I just wanted to compare and see what you're really getting for in terms of value when it comes to a surround sound gaming headset, because let's face it, a lot of you guys might not like the whole surreal or the surround experience, where some of you really appreciate the wider soundstage that you get when you enable virtual 7.1 surround sound. So we're going to find out which one of these headsets actually deliver a good experience. In fact, are they actually surround? So let's find out right after this. The new Master Liquid ML AIO liquid coolers from Cooler Master come in both 120 and 240mm variants, now with addressable RGB LEDs, both for the fans and the pump, that can be controlled via this hub with options to adjust the lighting effects and speed, along with the ability to control them through the respective motherboard software. Check out the ML120 and ML240R AIOs down below. Alright, so kicking things off with the design, and I think ASUS has certainly taken an interesting approach in that department with the Fusion 500. I think it's trying really hard to stand out from the competition with these plastic mirror finishes on the ear cups, and I have to mention that they're seriously a fingerprint magnet, plus it can scratch up easily over long-term use, so I'd handle this headset with caution. And of course, we cannot forget to mention the ROG branding. They're pretty much visible throughout the headset. I mean, they've even managed to imprint that on the ear cups, so the attention to detail here is appreciated, but it's not my taste. In fact, if you're looking for a surround gaming headset with a minimalist design approach, then this is certainly not it, because it definitely looks gamery. I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts on the design of the Strix 500 in the comments. The steel sliders are great, they're well defined, and they do lock in place once you've adjusted it to your convenient setting. And to quickly go over the RGB lighting on this headset, it's located on the rear side of the ear cup. The colors are nice and subtle, the diffusion is very consistent, and it looks really nice, but I just don't understand implementing that on the gaming headset, because when you're wearing them, you really can't see them. And most importantly, you're paying that extra premium cost for this headset just with the added implementation of the feature of RGB lighting. So that's something to consider. I might see this feature being beneficial for esports players, perhaps in that arena, but that's just my take. ASUS has included a driver software to adjust the lighting controls or the lighting effects on this headset, but oddly enough, there are only 3 to 4 effects that you can play around with, which includes static, breathing, color cycling, and the last one being the music, or an effect that reacts to your music. Another glitch that I had with this driver software is that I was not able to actually change the color of the lighting on this headset, because the customizable control was completely grayed out, so it didn't just make any sense. You only have the option to set it to a white color option, and that was pretty much it. Just doesn't make any sense. So I'd say, from a software perspective, it's just completely broken. ASUS could fix it with a software update, but as of right now, I just solely cannot rely on customizing lighting again with this headset, because it's broken. Now, ASUS has also implemented Bluetooth on the Strix Fusion 500, and before you start thinking that that's an awesome feature for audio streaming, you are wrong, because that isn't for audio. In fact, it's a functionality that can be used to adjust the lighting effects through your smartphone. So what you have to do is tap on the left ear cup you have to hold on it to activate Bluetooth, pair it up with your smartphone, and then you'll be able to adjust the lighting through the Aura app that you have to download from the Play Store. Again, a complete pointless feature in my opinion. It just doesn't make any sense. You really don't need it. I feel like ASUS is just shoving a bunch of features at your face that you really don't need, and then they decide to charge you $180. So yeah, it just, again, Doesn't make any sense. Switching over to the Revolver S, and this one looks like a typical gaming headset. The ear cups feature soft touch rubberized material that don't look too aggressive or flashy compared to the glossy mirror finish you get with the Fusion 500. The self-adjusting headband is personally not my favorite, as the metal frame can still cause annoying reverberations when it gets in contact with anything. This headset does not feature any RGB lighting, and I like that. Moving on to comfort, and I think the Revolver S seemed to take the edge here because it's overall a very light frame, and the signature memory foam does a really good job creating a good seal. Plus, it's not an irritating material, so I can wear this for longer periods of time. The clamping force is also very minimal on this headset, so from a comfort perspective, I'd actually prefer the HyperX Revolver S over the Strix Fusion 500. Speaking of which, for $180, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10 in the build quality department because it's mostly constructed out of hard plastic materials and it's put together really well. There were no signs of creaking, but I will mention that this is definitely not a lightweight headset since the ear cups house the ESS Hi-Fi 9018 DAC and a high quality amplifier. So the drawbacks are the shells are so much bigger and heavier, so this could potentially cause head fatigue over long-term use. I should also mention that the clamping force on this headset is way too high, and you can tell by looking at the shape. The ear cups can rotate 90 degrees, unlike the Revolver S, but given the large ear cup design, it almost chokes you and it feels really uncomfortable, especially when taking shorter breaks. So when you're wearing this headset, you're definitely going to notice this burden that's sitting on top of you, and it really is an uncomfortable experience, especially when you've tried lighter gaming headsets in the past. So in my opinion, I think that Revolver S actually gets the edge here in terms of comfort. Now, ASUS has decided to implement touch controls on the Fusion 500, and this is actually located on the left side of the ear cup. So the user has the option to swipe back and forth to skip between tracks, tap to play pause the music, or swipe up and down to adjust the volume. Now, my issue is that I had problems with the play pause functionality because sometimes it just wouldn't work. I had to replug the headset for that function to work, for that feature to work particularly. And the other problem that I had was the latency. So when you're swiping back and forth or adjusting the volume, it takes a couple of seconds to at least do that. So there's a little bit of a delay when it comes to adjusting the volume, but most importantly, the adjustments are in 4-step intervals. So it's definitely not accurate. And I just feel like it's not necessary for a gaming headset because it's just way too much complicated in my opinion. I would have much rather preferred a volume dial on the back side of the rear side of the headphone, or perhaps a control box within the cable would have been a lot better because it's well within reach while you're gaming. You can easily adjust the volume, mute the microphone, do whatever you need to. Because with the HyperX Revolver S, the control box is literally with the cable. So you just have this one dongle that literally lets you enable virtual 7.1 surround sound, adjust the volume, adjust the microphone's volume, the gain, and of course you do have the option to mute the microphone. So everything's in this one little box that's super subtle and nice, and it actually takes away a lot of weight when implementing that on the actual frame of the headset. Do note that the Strix headset is USB powered, so that means you will need a USB port for it to function. It does not come with a 3.5mm connector, so using this pair with your mobile device is totally out of question. The Fusion 300, which is the lower tier version of the 500, comes with both a USB connector and a 3.5mm analog port. And the differences are you don't get RGB lighting, there are no touch controls, and of course there's the lack of ESS Hi-Fi DAC. The cable is braided, but unfortunately it's really hard to maneuver around with. Given this nature, expect kink formation, and over time the cable could actually wear off too. Now, ASUS claims that the Fusion 500 is PS4 compatible, but that raised a lot of questions for me because as far as I know, there are not, in fact, I don't think there are any gaming controllers out there with a full-size Type A port. So in order to experience sound, you'd have to connect this directly to the console in order to experience that. And that's a complete fail in my opinion, because if you have your PS4 in a living room setup, then you'd have to sit directly in front of the TV, and that would be an uncomfortable experience. Whereas with the Revolver S gaming headset, you can plug this directly to your game controller via the 3.5mm audio jack, and you can experience sound right away. The only compromise is that you won't be able to experience 7.1 surround sound because this dongle right here is USB powered, so that's something to consider. Now, before I get into the microphone test, I do want to talk about the sound quality on both these headsets. So let's kick things off with the Fusion 500. And it was interesting because I want to kick things off with the stereo mode that comes by default out of the box. The trebles are severely crushed, meaning they're overtaken by the lower frequencies and the mids, which really causes an unbalanced stereo imaging. But when you enable the virtual 7.1 option, which can be activated by pressing the button that's located on the left side of the ear cup. And it actually eliminates a lot of the issues that I had with the stereo mode that comes by default without that button enabled. So right now you have the higher frequencies that are obviously a lot more lifted. They're a lot more clear and concise. The soundstage is not as wide as I would expect it to be, but they're very powerful thanks to the inclusion of the ESS Hi-Fi Saber DAC and of course the amplifier and all the high-tech audio stuff that they've jammed inside this headset. The problem is that I was actually not able to experience surround sound with the button enabled because the soundstage is a lot more closer to me compared to being far away. So for example, in Battlefield 1, when you're firing gunshots or hearing explosions in the background or even walking through the gameplay, you won't be surrounded by those audio cues, but you will get a good sense of positional awareness because it's after all a stereo experience. At least that's what I think. When compared to the Revolver S that expands your soundstage, creates this surround experience, and you can hear the environment a lot more in a wider space when you're driving or when you're riding a helicopter or when you're in a gameplay, when you're firing gunshots. It's a lot more immersive with that on the HyperX Revolver S when compared to the Fusion 500. So that's something that I found to be really odd. Again, from a sound quality perspective, these sound fantastic because the stereo imaging, once you enable that 7.1 button, is great because it kind of, I'm not sure if you kind of understand what I'm getting to, but it kind of creates this amazing stereo experience rather than being surround.
And the last thing to talk about is the microphone quality of the Fusion 500. As you can see, the boom microphone is non-removable, so it comes with the headset, and there's actually a little compartment on the left ear cup where you can just simply swivel to store this microphone. The good thing is that it actually mutes when you're swiveling, so that's pretty convenient. The odd part is that you don't have controls to your gain levels when it comes to the microphone, which is a little bit disappointing. But coming back to the quality, my voice sounds, it doesn't sound as boomy. It sounds a little bit on the shallower side. There's not a lot of definition with my bass because my voice certainly does have quite a bit of bass, but you really can't pick that up with this headset. It almost feels like the microphone is just a little bit distant from you, and I think it probably has to do with the orientation of the actual mic of this on this headset. But the other thing is that it actually doesn't have any noise canceling characteristics. So if I'm typing on a mechanical keyboard, you can certainly, or the microphone really does a pretty terrible job isolating that, and it picks up those sounds. So yeah, overall, I mean, it's definitely there when it comes to the gain levels. It's certainly clear. I mean, the person on the other end shouldn't have a problem listening to me, but again, love to hear your thoughts on the quality of the Fusion 500. And so right now you're listening to the HyperX Revolver S gaming headset. As you can tell, it's actually a lot more better. I mean, there's a little bit of processing going on in the background, but I think that has to do with the noise canceling characteristics. And as you can see, when I'm typing on the mechanical keyboard featuring Cherry MX Blue switches, it does a really good job isolating that noise. And of course, my voice certainly does have a little bit of a bass. There's a lot more, it's just a little bit boomier in my opinion. And I'm sure this would be perfect for Twitch streaming or even Skype calls in general. I think the person on the other end shouldn't have a problem at all listening to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the comparison. Which one do you prefer? Let me know in the comments down below.
So to conclude this comparison, I'm just going to be very honest. I don't think you should spend $180 on the Fusion 500 because it's a confusing headset. Because for one, the touch controls, they just don't make any sense. They don't function. The RGB lighting with the software just doesn't work. The design is not personally my favorite, but I mean, some of you might vouch for that. And there's also the whole part with comfort because it's a very heavy gaming headset. There's a lot of things packed inside this frame because you've got the hi-fi DAC as well as the amplifier, and it's overall just a bulky headset with a lot of features. But from a sound perspective, again, the stereo imaging is fantastic. I don't think you'll have any issues with that. But my concern is that I was actually not able to experience surround sound with this headset, and I was a little bit disappointed with that. Again, headphone reviews are subjective, but that's just my take on the Fusion 500. Now, when you look at something like the Revolver S from HyperX, I think this headset delivers a fantastic experience for $150. Albeit, the amplification when it comes to the stereo imaging is a lot lower than what you'll find on the Fusion 500. But if you're looking for a gaming headset with a really good surround experience, especially when it comes to feeling the gunshots, and if you want to feel that you're in the environment, you should definitely consider the Revolver S because it's a great pair. So that about wraps up this comparison between the Strix Fusion 500 and the HyperX Revolver S gaming headset. Now, if you had a budget of around $200 to spend on a virtual 7.1 surround gaming headset, would you actually consider the Fusion 500, or would you save a lot less and pick the Revolver S? Or are there any alternatives that you might be interested in? Love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm Ibra with Hardware Connects. Thank you so much for watching. Links to purchase these headsets will be in the description down below. Make sure to check out our new Boot Sequence channel where we have content regarding tech news and all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can watch some relevant content over here. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. That has to happen.